Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Aces High here, and today I'm bringing you guys a video. It's American soldiers versus British soldiers. Which ones are better? It talks about the Army in particular, so I guess not necessarily the Marines, not necessarily the Air Force, things like that. But just says it says Army/military, so it might get into a little bit of everything. And it's actually a modern one, so it's a 2021 comparison. I'm really excited to see this. I think the American military is going to do really well, but I don't know that much about the British military, and honestly, I think they're pretty good. We have such a here in America we have such a wide range of different soldiers and such a big budget that I don't know. I think we're gonna do pretty good. I did get this video from the Infographics Show, and of course they gave me permission to use it, so don't worry about that. Anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and throw the link down below in the description if you guys want to check out the original video. If not, let's get started.
It's 2025, and after a strange shift in geopolitics and world powers, the USA and the UK have found themselves going to war with each other. These longtime allies that once fought side by side in World War II in Afghanistan have become arch enemies fighting for global dominance. The rest of the world looks on in horror. But who will win? There's one fact that's hard to ignore. One side is larger than the other by a long way, the United States. Based on size alone, the US military is the clear winner. It boasts over 1.4 million personnel, compared with a measly...
We also have the biggest budget in the world for our military. We spend so much money on training them to make sure that they're not just a bunch of do-nothing, know-nothing soldiers, that they're properly trained.
149,000 in the UK. That might not guarantee success if the whole US Army consists of untrained airheads and idiots, but it doesn't hurt. Especially when you consider the amount the US spends. The American military budget is a huge $740 billion compared with the UK's much smaller $49 billion. How cute. Money can't buy you everything in life, but it helps to win wars. But to be fair, both countries take their military spending seriously. In terms of GDP, the USA spends 3.4% on the military, and the UK spends around 1.7%. That figure won't help the Brits win a war, but it's something they can nurse their national egos with. So far, things aren't looking good for the Brits. They've been outnumbered and outspent. Let's see if they can turn things around with their equipment. As they say, it's not all about the size, it's about how you use it. Which country has the best weapons, gadgets, and vehicles? If we're talking about quantities, the USA gets an easy win here, as you'd expect. They spend far more on the military overall, so of course, they have more stuff. The UK only has 227 tanks compared to the USA's 8,300.
So I know that they're going to get into it in a second, or at least I'd imagine they will. But let's be real, tanks, I mean, if you're fighting in the middle of the desert or something, maybe tanks are the way to go. But I mean, we have so much more than that. We can shoot missiles from space, from boats. We have unmanned drones, just all kinds of crazy stuff. I don't know what Great Britain has, but I feel like, I mean, honestly, we're going to kick their ass if we fight them. We'll find out.
170. As for
what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below.
armored vehicles, the UK has 4,673 and the USA has 41,760.
Wow.
Is the UK's lack of resources such a big deal? Experience shows us that yes it is. During the Afghanistan conflict in 2007, the British Army stationed in the south of the country had been finding it increasingly difficult to maintain peace over the last 3 years because of their lack of equipment. Guess who had to sweep in to save them? The Americans. The U.S. Brigadier General Lawrence Nicholson brought in 4,000 Marines with a new approach. Go big, go strong, go fast. The new forces weren't exactly successful in maintaining peace, as anyone familiar with the Kandahar massacre and the Maiwand district murders will know, but they were good at going big and going strong, which could give the US an edge in battle. In Afghanistan, the British used it.
That's actually horrible. I might make a video on the massacre, and wow, 16 people killed. I understand people are going to die in situations like this, but it's just always hard to hear, always hard to see. I mean, it's interesting to just go in guns blazing, but does it always really work? I mean, you may get the job done, but is it worth it? I don't know. Let me know what you guys think down below.
Jackal vehicles, which are designed for maneuverability rather than protecting the person inside. The Americans had MRAPs, or Mine Resistant Ambush Protected Vehicles. Although MRAP tanks are classified as light armored vehicles, they weigh a massive 14 to 18 tons and are a lot sturdier than the Jackals, designed to withstand the improvised explosive devices that threatened troops during the Iraq and Afghanistan conflicts. They were much more effective at keeping the troops safe from danger than anything the Brits had. However, the US Marines seem to have plenty of admiration for the Brits and what they achieved despite their lack of equipment. So that's something. One American Marine commented, "The biggest thing I noticed was the vehicles they drive. You guys are friggin' gutsy. I wouldn't get shot at in one of those." Does having more flimsy vehicles make the British the weaker side, or just more badass? It depends on which way you look at it. Another difference between the...
There's another YouTuber called Gendic Commando. He was a former British Marine commando. And I'll tell you what, man, some of the stories he tells us and just things he knows, I'd say the British are pretty badass, but you'll have to let me know what you think.
The British and U.S. armies is their deployment of women on the front line. We don't want to say women are better or worse in the military than men, because that'd probably start a war in the comments section, so we'll let you decide.
Sorry to stop it again, but this is obviously an older video because we do allow women in the military in America now.
But it's definitely worth mentioning. In Afghanistan, the U.S. Marines were shocked to see women wandering around shower blocks wrapped in nothing but a towel, with no cares in the world. The U.S. does have women in the armed forces, but they aren't always allowed to be on the front line or live in close proximity to their male counterparts. In the U.K., on the other hand, women are seen as equals. Revolutionary concept. Despite their surprise at the close working and living relationships between women and men in the British Army, the U.S. Marines soon realized these women were professional soldiers they needed to take seriously. But could the initial shock be a trump card up the sleeves of the British? Anyway, time to get on to the important stuff. The real factors that determine the success of a military side. Who can handle the most alcohol? It's a contentious topic. The British are known for drinking more heavily, and they can start at a younger age, but the U.S. soldiers might give them a run for their money. Around 40% of U.S. soldiers indulge in binge drinking. I know what you're thinking. What does this have to do with the power of their militaries? Although drinking...
in my opinion, when you go out with your friends, your coworkers, something like that, and you have a few drinks, you kind of get to know each other, you form a tight bond, and you work better together after that. It just, I think it really does help. And, you know, who doesn't want a nice cold beer?
Is a skill that might be impressive on a wild night out on the town. It's not a positive thing during combat. It's important for soldiers to keep their mental health stable over extended periods of combat. The soldiers might use alcohol as a way of coping with difficult experiences they encounter during the military instead of talking about them. Over half of British servicemen and women drank at a level that could harm their health in 2018, most likely to self-medicate from mental health conditions such as PTSD or post-traumatic stress disorder. Similarly, alcohol as a coping mechanism is a huge problem among veterans. Wow, things just got dark. Back to a more lighthearted topic. You can't mention the drinking preferences of the British without mentioning their ultimate beverage of choice, tea. In contrast, the US prefers coffee. Does this affect the combat performance of either side? Time to find out. Many British tanks and armored vehicles are fitted with water-boiling devices. Cube-shaped kettles enable the troops to boil water inside the protection of a tank and drink tea to their heart's content. Maybe that's why the British were willing to sacrifice the sturdiness of their vehicles in Afghanistan. This might seem a bit eccentric, not to mention pointless, but hear us out. During World War II, a large number of fatalities were caused by crew members having to leave the safety of their tanks when they needed a break. There was only one reasonable solution: let them make a brew inside the tank. That way, the troops were less of a target for enemy fire. 10 out of 10 for ingenuity. Who knows, maybe this could be their secret.
Is that true? If you're from Great Britain, let me know down below. Do you guys really... I don't know if any of you are in the military, but do you guys really have a thing where you can boil water inside of your tanks, inside your vehicles? That's incredible. Like, can't we do the same thing? Can't we just stick a Keurig in the back of ours? Make some coffee whenever we want? That would be great. Hell, I'll join the military then.
A weapon in a future war. There's nothing like a fresh brew to keep an army going. But don't discount the Americans, because they also seem to recognize the importance of a lovely warm beverage. The U.S. Army aims to ensure coffee is always available to its soldiers, whether in ration packs or at garrisons. Sometimes there are shortages, so improvisation comes into play to give the soldiers their daily fix. During the Korean War, some soldiers indulged in sock coffee, coffee filtered using a sock. Or, if the worst comes to worst, they just mix instant coffee granules with cold water and down it like a shot of vodka. Lovely. It's worth it to have that caffeine coursing through your veins ready for battle. Clearly, both sides have their vices, but we'll have to give the Brits the edge on this one, based purely on the fact that they're less likely to drop dead from swallowing some questionable feet fungi. In this capitalist world, soldiers aren't just fighting for their national pride or a noble cause. They also want to receive their paycheck at the
Minimum wage. Isn't that a damn shame? Listen, one of the things that I talk about all the time in America is, I don't know how it is in Great Britain, and I'm sure they'll talk about it, but in America, people know we have the biggest budget by far. It's like the same military budget as the next 9 countries combined. And I understand that gets us our crazy missiles, our crazy drones, our space programs, our aircraft carriers, all this cool stuff. But every time that the budget goes up, the soldiers don't seem to see any of it. They don't get raises. And when you're a lower level soldier, you barely make enough to scrape by. I mean, you have to get way up there before you make any money at all, and you're putting your life on the line. I mean, in times of war, they get a little bit more, but I still don't think it's worth it. It's a great thing to do, and when I say I don't think it's worth it, I mean, what I mean by that is it's a great job. People should be doing it, and I'm proud of anybody that is. But why don't we pay them more? We should be paying our soldiers more. They're putting their lives on the line for us.
At the end of it all, the draft ended in 1973 after the Vietnam War in the USA, making the Army a professional, career-oriented force. In the British Army, the national service officially ended in 1960, and it transformed into a professional army in 1963. So who gets the fattest check? New recruits in the British Army start on a salary of £15,985 a year in training, soon going up to $20,400 when becoming a private. After a few years, if they can reach the rank of sergeant, the salary will go up to £35,853 a year. That's around $46,000. In the U.S. Army, new recruits can expect to earn $24,512 a year as a private first class after initial training. A sergeant earns anything up to $29,610 a year.
To put that in reference, I live on the West Coast, so we actually make more money than a lot of the country. But I can go work full-time at McDonald's and make more than that. Or I'd have to convert the pounds to US, but it'd be very, very close to that. I mean, minimum wage here is in my Seattle area is $15 an hour. So do the math on that. That's 30,000 if you work 2,000 hours.
So we have a clear winner here. Let's hope the Americans don't find out, or they could end up switching sides. Now that would be an interesting war. With so much money, you'd hope the British soldiers would go through a half-decent training program. Let's find out if that's the case. In the UK, most soldiers complete a 14-week common military syllabus, followed by specialist training for different trades and divisions. US soldiers train for slightly less time. They complete a 10-week basic combat training course, then complete more career-oriented training. Overall, both countries offer a similar style of training based on fitness, discipline, and weaponry. It's hard to say that one country is definitively superior here, but there is one key difference: the age of the recruits. A U.S. soldier must be 17 to join the forces with parental consent, or 18 without the consent. Meanwhile, Brits can join at the age of 16 if they have parental consent, making the UK the only NATO country to recruit young people into its military at age 16. It's a controversial policy, considering these recruits must remain in the Army until they're 22, and they can't even vote or drink alcohol until they turn 18. With literal boys among them who might have joined the forces as a rash decision, could British soldiers be flakier and less mature than their US counterparts? Or is their youth just a testament to how tough they are? But this is just the beginning. Average soldiers might make up the bulk of the Army, but what about the guys that are really, really well trained? We're talking about elite special forces. The British Army has the famous SAS, or Special Air Service. Founded during World War II, it's one of the oldest special forces and has the highest entry requirement of all British forces, with the motto, "Who dares wins." The SAS is respected and feared across the globe in equal measure. It's heavily involved in reconnaissance and counterterrorism, meaning most of their work is below the radar and people like us can't get too nosy about it. However, they do plenty of cool and hardcore stuff, like rescuing hostages. Not to be outdone, the U.S. Army has the highly respected and admired Delta Force, also known as the 1st Special Forces Operation Detachment.
I have heard of Delta Force, and I gotta tell you, they are badass. They're crazy, man. Like, they're just incredibly trained. And I'm sure the British version of it is exactly the same. But yeah.
Formed in 1977, it's known as one of the most secretive U.S. forces and specializes in counterterrorism and hostage rescue. Sounding familiar yet? Allegedly, the Delta Force was modeled on the British SAS. We want to give the Brits the point here for sheer originality, but it's not exactly good news for them if the Americans know the training secrets and operations of their elite forces. That's a rookie error if there ever was one, especially when there are way more U.S. soldiers and they have better equipment. What about the heads of the armies? The U.S. Army serves the government of the USA, making the President of the U.S. Commander-in-Chief. Meanwhile, the British Army serves Her Majesty the Queen as head of the armed forces, who is also...
Is that true? The military technically serves underneath the Queen? I thought it would fall underneath Parliament and things like that. I mean, I understand that ours falls under the President technically, but our President, I mean, our whole system just works a little different than yours. I, honest to God, thought that the person in charge would be the Prime Minister. Let me know if that's true, you guys, because that really, wow, that one really gets me.
Also their Commander-in-Chief. Her Majesty the Queen Elizabeth is closely tied to the British military, having been a wife, mother, and even grandmother of individuals serving in the armed forces. During World War II, the Queen, who was then Princess Elizabeth, joined the Auxiliary Territorial Service herself and learned to maintain and drive military vehicles and ambulances. She even achieved the rank of Honorary Junior Commander while doing her part for the war effort. By comparison, the current U.S. president, as of this script's writing, claimed to suffer bone spurs when it was his time to serve his country. Points here for the badass monarch up to her elbow in Greece, fixing combat vehicles and serving her country. Overall, the British and American armies are matched fairly evenly in terms of their training and structure. It doesn't exactly come as a surprise, considering their histories are so closely linked. Realistically, the Americans would likely have the upper hand in any war against the Brits due to sheer manpower and weaponry. But let's hope the two sides can settle their differences over a cup of tea or coffee. Now check out our India and China.
Well, what'd you guys think of that one? I thought it was really interesting. I mean, going into it, I thought the U.S. is huge compared to Great Britain. Our budget is giant. It only makes sense that we destroy the British. However, I mean, it's just, wow. There were quite a few examples where the British just, I don't even know, like, you guys just seem tougher sometimes, maybe not. I still think the Americans would win, but I think it would definitely be a fight. So the part that really got me was that the Queen is in charge of your military. I mean, our president's in charge, but you guys have a different type of government. So I thought for sure the Prime Minister would be in charge. The channel I got this from, definitely a credible channel, but if that's wrong, let me know. Let me know in the comments down below. I'd really like to know if that's true or not. As always, if you guys liked it, smack that like button. It really does help me out. And if you're new to the channel, hit the sub button to stick around for more content. I release it 4 or 5 days a week, maybe more. As always, I love you guys. You know that. This is Aces High, and I'm out.